Hi, this is Lisha.
And this is Steph, and you're listening to
Trash Bags Podcast.
Hey folks, this is part two of us talking about some of the differences between Canada and India. If you haven't checked out part one yet, then you should head over and check that out now. If you already have, then feel free to follow along as we continue our conversation on some of the comparisons and contrasts between our lives in different countries. Okay, so from where we left off, Alicia, we were talking a bit about the government there and this like feeling of being part of a collective body and less of kind of an individual feeling, which
Mhm.
sort of made me think like, how do individuals sort of navigate that, I guess? And like, do you feel that same feeling from the individuals around, or is that more so a feeling from the government?
It's an incredible question what you just asked because I don't think anybody feels as strongly as somebody in Canada does about their identity. Like at least for a common man who has probably like a government job has no sense of personal identity. I feel like maybe he just is an embodiment of something that the society expects of him. And it's when I moved to Canada, when I was there, that I realized that people recognized like certain qualities about me that nobody else had, that my little quirks were embraced. So that is when I realized your individuality is pretty powerful, and I should put a lot of effort into developing it and being able to recognize it and to be proud of it even. So I would say it is an alien concept here because there's so much messaging in terms of how you are supposed to be. If you're a woman, you need to be extremely feminine, you need to have long hair, you need to be dressed like so and so and so, so there's a lot of expectations in place for everybody, for a man, for somebody who's middle aged, for somebody who's old. So it's pretty hard. I don't know, but I feel like maybe that's all over the world, right? Everybody is told how to be. So is this what you were kind of like
Yeah.
getting at?
Yeah, kind of, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
definitely like globally, yes, we are all kind of told like what to be, who to be, or I guess like what to aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which like I don't know, like here I would say it comes a lot from movies and TV and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all of the different kinds of social medias and advertising and all of the things that kind of get put in your face of like, this is what a person looks like and this
Mm-hmm.
is how a person who looks like you behaves. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of idea is definitely pretty evident. um yeah, where does that come from for you guys? Like, is Hollywood a huge factor out there? I know you've mentioned before that TikTok is actually not allowed, like it's banned or something.
Mm. Well, in India, Bollywood is big. So that's the Hindi film industry. It's massive. Most people try to imitate the protagonist, the macho male figure that is portrayed in movies, and the coy, shy actress is someone like a woman is expected to be like. So it's movies mainly.
Mhm. Which,
Yeah.
okay, also, this just made me remember a different conversation we've had
Mm.
um, about like I think what you were saying was that like music in India was very different than here, and like a lot of music comes from Bollywood movies. Is that what you
Oh
said,
yeah.
or like a lot of them are musicals or something? I
All our
don't know.
movies are musicals.
That's such a weird
It's like a
concept.
Yeah, it's like a running joke that people start dancing all of a sudden in the middle of a scene and things like that. But yes, most of our music are from the movies.
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
but there are like
I
individual
mean,
recording artists, but they're not as popular as these movie
I
songs.
know one song by an Indian recording artist, and it's
Who
very
is it?
fun. She's like playing a flute or something. It's called Aaj Shanibar is the name of the song. I couldn't tell you the name of the girl, but it's called like Disco something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally pulling it up right now just because
Okay,
I
because
think it's
I
funny.
don't know what
It's
you're
called
talking about.
it's called Aaj Shanibar by Rupa, and it's called Disco Jazz is the name of the album, and it's in one of my playlists, and I listen to a lot. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
Okay, I've never heard of.
I don't know, it might be
I've
from
never
like the
heard about this.
90s or the early 2000s. I feel like is
Hmm.
the vibe I get from the album cover. I think she's holding like a flute or a recorder or something. I don't even know how I found it. It was just a Spotify find.
I pull up the what you just mentioned on Google and it says barely disco and hardly jazz. So what is it then? What is
Okay,
it?
okay, I can play a small clip.
আজ শনিবার আজ শনিবার এই নাচবি চলো আজ এই নাচবি চলো আজ শনিবার আজ শনিবার এই নাচবি চলো এই নাচবি চলো আজ শনিবার চলো নাচবি চলো ঘুরে ফিরে তালে তালে ছন্দে ছন্দে তালে ফেলো আজ শনিবার আজ শনিবার
Anyways, I've totally brought us off topic and into wherever the fuck. I'm bad for that.
We can talk about police.
Oh yeah, what are police like in India?
Oh my god. It's terrible.
Oh shit.
Do you know in movies how they show that they show police showing up after everything is, done?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Um,
Oh, it's like a pretty useless
it's
police
very
force.
useless. It's very corrupted. Lots of people can get away with doing illegal things because they can get away by bribing police.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely a thing that like gets portrayed in movies sometimes is this idea of
Hmm.
like the police showing up and being like, "Give me $500 or I'm gonna take your car," and then you can't call it stolen because it was police officer you're gonna report that to. Um, I don't know, that's a
But this
totally
is
made up idea, but does something like that happen there?
this happens every day on a large scale, probably by almost all police officers. So they have no sense
Oh,
of ethics and morals. That's because they've realized that they can get away by taking bribes, and they would obviously be making more money from these bribes instead of being paid their salary. It's just a common understanding at this point, to be honest. There's no sight of any change. It's like this is just progressing and increasing over time. Do you think that happens there as well?
I think it probably happens here, but to a smaller degree. Like I haven't personally really had any interactions with the police. Not many. I've had a couple.
Hmm.
But I've not like seen or heard stories of like such levels of bribery.
Mm.
Um, it's mostly just people being like, "Yeah, you can like talk your way out of a ticket," which is
Hmm.
like, I don't know, that seems pretty chill. Um, I mean,
Isn't it illegal
right now
for the
our
police to take bribes?
sorry?
Isn't it illegal for the police to take any bribes from people?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is, at least. It seems like it should be pretty illegal.
Mhm.
I don't really know all the laws, but like I'm not out here killing people, so I think we're pretty chill.
Hmm.
Um and like evidently like this year policing is like being very much questioned, and like in the past year, and I mean even before then people have been questioning like the whole need for that system to be in place. And like
Mhm.
now right now like they've kind of dropped the power to the police a little bit, but like the current lockdown that we're in, there was a point for like a day when the police just had like the right to stop anyone and question them, like, where are you from, where are you going, why are you going
Mhm.
there, like just absolutely anyone could get questioned. And then they like tried to
Mhm.
change that so that they could like only question you if you appeared to be going to a gathering, which like what the fuck does that mean? How do you know if someone appears to go to a gathering? Like, what is this? The airport with your freaking random security checks? Like, it's so arbitrary. It makes no sense. Like, that's that police officer looking at someone and saying, "You're the one I want to target."
Mm.
Um, so like that's more so like the issues that are being brought up with our policing is like specific targeting of individuals, but
And there was a
less so than like
whole,
bribery.
yeah,
Sorry, what were you saying? There's a
there was
whole.
a whole, there was a whole shtick about defunding the police during Black Lives
Mhm.
Movement, right? Did
Yeah,
that
so that is
ever like,
still
yeah?
that still definitely like has power behind it, and like people are still fighting for that. Like there's petitions you can sign, there's emails you can send out. There's like all kind of resources like constantly going around about that, and especially I want to say a couple months back they were like redoing the annual police budget because it was the time for them to do that. And so like at that point there was a lot of resources going around of like just like easy email templates that you could send to the mayor and stuff, and you just like plunk in your name and like some whatever,
Mm.
so that you can like be like part of standing with people to dismantle these systems that like really do get way too much funding. Like it doesn't make sense the amount of funding that they have and the kind of work that they do, and like those resources could be better spent on other systems that could do a lot better, in my personal opinion, because I'm on the side of defunding the police.
Yeah.
I mean, that's its own entire conversation because everyone has their own opinions of how they think that defunding should go, and I think I'm gonna leave that off the podcast because that is everyone's own opinions of how they think defunding should go. I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm on the side of retire out the police force. Some people want it gone immediately. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
you know, I don't know. But I guess your police force there, is there any conversations of dismantling that to any degree? Or is it
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no talks about improving the police system at all. I mean, like you said, like you said, you don't have any experience with interacting with the police, right? Like that was the same with me as well. But recently, when I was applying for my visa, I had to get a criminal record kind of a thing
mm-hmm.
to prove that I don't have any past criminal whatever offenses in my name or whatever, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I had to go to the police station, interact with the uh, administrator, not even the actual police officer. He's just an administrator in the office, and we had to uh, pay him, bribe him, just for him to do his job. It's that
Whoa.
bad.
Okay, that's
Yes,
fucked up.
yes. And as a woman, I couldn't walk in there with confidence and and just talk to them the way I wanted to. I had to pretend like I'm cowardly and I'm small in front of the man, like as a woman, I'm somebody who shouldn't talk up for myself, speak up for myself, and things
And
like that. So
if
that was very confusing because I'm somebody who will be myself always,
yeah.
confident and
Hmm.
I know who I am and I will be true to myself, but just to have them do their job, I had to become somebody else and bribe him. That was one of the worst experiences of my life.
And do you think if you were a man, you wouldn't have to bribe him? Like,
If
you
I
think he
was
would
a
have just done
man,
it?
I still had to bribe him, but I could speak up and,
Hmm.
be myself.
And and I'm just so curious, like, what would happen, do you think, if you had spoken up and if you hadn't played this like docile sort of role?
It's just the idea that
Like, would it just make things even
women,
harder for you? Like,
it would make things harder for me because in that case, I think it would be perceived as I am demeaning his manliness, and
mm, yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's what
okay.
it is.
Damn, that's fucked.
Yeah, yes,
Police should
just
certainly
for
not
him to
have
do
that
his job.
power. That's not even policing. Like that's like what you hear of in, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the country wrong. Wow, I can't remember. Um, oh man, my brain wants to say Uganda, but I really feel like that's wrong. The country that had the issue with their police force was called SARS. Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
maybe? Yeah, I think it might have been Nigeria. And like that was like kind of like their police force. They had kind of, I think, like denounced the police, or they denounced something and then created this SARS unit, which was like supposed to help the people, but in the end was just like basically police officers taking bribes and creating mayhem, and like, but like we're still kind of a government sanctioned thing that was allowed to happen, and like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of what your police system sounds like. But
Yeah.
not cool.
I guess this is one of the reasons why I thought everything was so orderly and clean in Canada. Although you may not feel the
But
same.
like literally as we're also trying to defund our police systems. So clearly the policing system, I mean, it might sound broad, but like globally is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've not interacted with many police officers in other countries, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Um,
suspect it's just an issue overall.
Sorry, going back to that thing you asked earlier, like
Mhm.
you asked me if we were gonna question or challenge the existing policing system. I
Mhm.
was watching this documentary by Alexei Navalny. I was talking
Mhm.
about this to you earlier, like last week, I guess.
Mhm.
So he said something that struck me, and I realized something very massive from what he said. So he said that in rich countries, people do not, just wait around and they don't tolerate things. They stand up for what they want. They go on the streets to demand for any injustices caused to them. But in smaller countries, poorer countries, people just tolerate all these injustices and go on with them. And I had never actually realized that until he pointed that out, because we actually do, we tolerate everything because there's so much wrong with so many things that we can't start fighting for them. It's just because you won't get the support. You Things are too complicated, things are too fucked up, so
Like there's too
people
many
just
issues
tolerate
to
it and go
solve at
on.
once, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. And we just wait for somebody else to show up and fix them, and nobody's showing up. Things are getting worse.
Yeah. It
Mm-hmm.
almost like, to be honest, the way you just described that, it almost sounded like someone trapped in an abusive relationship. You know,
Yeah.
like they're just kind of like waiting for things to get better. Like they don't realize like how deep into it they've gotten. And like that's sort
Uh-huh.
of any problem, right? Like you can't see the river for the rocks in it or whatever that expression is. Of like once you're in it, like you can't see what you're in, but like I don't know. I think kind of just the way you described that, it sort of sounded like someone trapped in an abusive relationship, which is like obviously not an ideal way to think of countries living. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I guess
Um,
when you are in a country like Canada, you don't realize the freedoms you have, you don't realize the privilege you have.
mhm.
It's very easy for me to tell you to be grateful for your privilege, but how will you do that if you don't know the other side of the coin, you know? Like, how, I
Yeah.
mean, you would just notice everything bad with whatever is going on in that country. You don't realize the good, but
Yeah, and it is sort of that thing of like you can never experience the things you can never experience. You know, like
mhm,
I mean, I could move to India and spend the rest of my life there, but I would still never know what it's like to be a native Indian person and like what it's actually like to grow up in India and what it's like
mhm,
to have that be my whole life and my whole culture. Like I'll only ever know it from a Canadian immigrating to India experience, which is the same
mhm,
that you'll only ever know the Canadian experience as an Indian immigrating to Canada. Um,
mhm.
which like obviously yes, we could spend even 6 months in each other's countries, and you've obviously spent more time than that here in Canada, but and like you get more of an understanding for it. But it is kind of interesting that like yeah, you can never truly understand the perspective of someone else because you haven't lived their life and
Mhm.
seen things the way that they've seen them. So to
Mhm.
have an entire country behaving in one way is, or entire sections of the world or entire continents is like because that's this perspective that has led them to this place.
Even while driving on the streets, nobody follows the rules. There are we have lots of people on scooters because scooters are more affordable for poorer people. So there's a mix of cars, scooters, three-wheeled auto rickshaws, um, pe- people on with on tractors sometimes once in a while and funny things like that.
People just really
Uh,
taking any mode of transportation.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like these streets are mine now.
yeah, and nobody follows the rules. Lots of people go on the wrong side of the street. Lots of people break almost all of the rules most of the time, and so as a person who is following the rules would have to give in to so many others who are breaking those rules.
Hmm.
And how many times can I, like discipline people on the way, you know?
Which is
So at some
interesting.
point, yeah.
It's interesting too because what you're like what you said before about like how here, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to put this into words. Like you said that here it almost like it's almost like we act like this entitlement way of like we'll fight for what's ours and like what we think are our
Hmm.
rights and like we'll stand up
Yeah.
for ourselves more. And then
Hmm.
like there they won't and like people will just like passively accept what it is. But then
Hmm.
like when it comes to like the rules, they're like, "Oh, these are the road rules that are in place to keep us all safe and like orderly so that we can like get around in an efficient way." Like, "No,
Hmm.
that's not the thing that I'm going to try and defend. That's not the thing that I'm going to uphold in place. Like that's my freedom and I'll go wherever I want." And like it just seems interesting and like kind of funny that it's like yes, there's some rules in place to like that like are kind of arbitrary and don't really need to be there and sure you can just kind of ignore them, but like there's other rules that are like I don't know, I think the rules of the road make sense.
Yeah.
One direction of travel per side, stoplights and signs so that people know when they can go. It's kind of
Hmm.
funny that like that's what people are like feeling entitled about. They're like, "No. I'm gonna ride my auto rickshaw the same way you ride your car and your scooter. It's my lane the same as it's your lane. I don't care if we're gonna be in a head-on collision. What? Why is that the place you want to stand up for yourself?
Now do you understand the trifecta of no value for humans, lack of education?
It just
um,
seems chaotic and
yeah.
very confusing. Like, how do you know which rules to navigate and which rules to ignore? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I guess you
Tell me
just
about
grow
it.
up knowing.
You just have to figure it out along the way. This is
Okay.
why life is so hard here. It's the tiny things, it's the tiniest things that makes so much sense, but people do not apply that. They don't have common sense. They literally do what they
Oh.
want. It's ridiculous. It's like a playpen of 5-year-olds who have no knowledge about anything, who have to navigate their way around life.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Hmm. And is this a safe assumption that this is how, like, most of India operates? Or is this kind of,
It,
like, exclusive to your city?
the funny thing is, in my city, it's pretty mild. It's 10 times worse if you go to northern India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Interesting, interesting. Have you traveled much of India? Have you seen much of
Uh,
it?
a little bit, yes. I've traveled a little, mostly in the southern region, and then a little bit in the north.
Okay.
And
Oh,
I have taken a train ride from the south and all the way up to the north for like 2 days straight. And you could gradually see the differences in the culture from one region to another as you went along the ride.
okay.
Yeah.
Is it like, okay, if you travel across Canada, it's like pretty evident when you're like in an area with people and then you're like in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, like there's a lot that you're just like traveling through and you're like, okay, farmland. Okay, hills
Mhm,
and trees.
mhm,
Okay, like nothing here or like small town. Like and then the States is like kind of the same. Like there's like big open empty areas like the desert, but then you go to like the east and it's just like town, city, town, city, city, town, city, city, town. Like what's it like in India?
mhm.
Where's the population? Is it everywhere? Somewhere?
Similarly, there's the rural areas and urban areas here. So most of the
Mm-hmm.
population is urbanized right now. Rural places are, much well behaved. It's where population is the most, where chaos is also high.
Okay.
Like I said, the culture changes from the south to the north. So, all these problems that I was talking about, that is poverty, lack of education, too many people, all of that, just literally increases in proportion as you go up to the north. That is
Oh,
why I said it's like
okay.
10 times worse, because there's way more people, there's way more poverty, there's so much more lack of education in people, there's so much more ignorance, there's so much more arrogance.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like not because like it makes sense, sure. Like across Canada, the culture changes, but
Hmm.
that it's like so visible is
Hmm.
I don't know, it's interesting.
That's why I encourage everybody to like to come to India. It's an alien planet on the same, same planet, but it's an alien experience.
Um, well then, also about traveling across India, which I guess
Hmm.
wouldn't happen so much north to south, but perhaps east to west. And you might know where I'm going here. It's one of my favorite topics that I always bring up because it confuses me. Time zones. Does India fall across multiple time zones, or is it
No,
all in the same time?
just one,
You lucky bastards.
because it's tiny country. It's not as massive as Canada.
True, we take up so
Hmm.
much planet space. Holy shit. We're just like all over this ish.
How many time zones do you have?
Well, it'd be great if I could answer that, wouldn't it? Let's see. We got like BC has like mountain time. I
Yes.
think that's what it's called. Then
Hmm.
there's like I want to say two that you cross in like the middle. That brings
Hmm.
you like into Ontario. and then there's like another one somewhere East Coast-ish. And then
Pacific time.
Newfoundland is extra fun because they have their own separate time zone just for Newfoundland. I don't think Labrador is included in that. And it's
Okay.
just off by half an hour, just for fun, just a half
From
hour
what?
bump. Just from everyone else, it's just a half hour bump. Oh, I guess like from the East
Okay.
Coast, like from whatever that is. So like maybe 4 or 5 time zones. We got a lot. We like
Why? What
we
is wrong with Newfoundland?
oh, why it's that like half hour bump? I
Yeah, what is wrong with
literally
them?
I literally couldn't tell you. I think it might just be that like I mean, I guess like that's the way time zones work, right? Is that like you're set to that time because that's when the sun rises and sets. Um,
Hmm.
so it like makes sense for your clock to appropriately display that. Um, but why it's a half hour and not the full hour, I honestly don't know. I
Hmm.
couldn't tell you. It's just the way it is. What I can say though is that it messed up my iPad when I was, or it's not even an iPad, was it a Samsung? Whatever my tablet is. I messed it up when I went there the first time because it like connected to Newfoundland time and then like refused to disconnect or something. I don't know. But the time zone has like eternally been messed up since I went there the first time. Which like doesn't really phase me too much, but would be annoying if it was my main time telling device.
Hmm. So you should be like comfortable with the idea of time change in multiple time zones, right?
Well, like yes and no. Like I should be because like we have them across our country, but it's not like, I'm here in Toronto, but I don't talk to anyone in Vancouver. I know
Hmm.
people in Vancouver, Halifax, Newfoundland, PEI. Like I know people all across a fair amount of Canada.
Hmm.
Especially like my family's pretty spread out, but like when we talk, like if I text my cousin something or like message someone on Instagram, like it kind of doesn't matter what time it is when they receive that message. Like either they reply or they don't. But with me and you, like we're always talking and like trying to have these real time conversations. And so like the whole time zone thing just always fucks me right up. And then you add the daylight savings time into it, which like I guess I knew was kind of a unique thing, but I didn't realize like that it's like pretty unique to like I don't even know if America does it. Like I don't is that like just a Canada
America
thing?
does it.
It's like some
No, no, America does it.
they
UK
do?
does it as
Okay.
well. I don't know who else does it. Yeah.
Okay. But Manitoba doesn't. Or Saskatchewan? I don't know, like one of our provinces just doesn't do it, is my
Okay.
understanding. Just like what the fuck? Like I don't know, man. Time is weird. I'm so glad that I exist in a time beyond the point when they have already calculated and like figured out how to tell time. Just
Yes,
imagine
absolutely.
that freaking madness. You wake up, someone's like, "What time is it?" And you're like, "I don't know. The sun is up. Must be awake
You.
time. Certainly doesn't feel like a sleep time anymore." What the fuck? What the fuck? God, we are all just specks floating on a rock in space. Ooh.
Ah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
India doesn't have daylight savings, so it was an absolutely new concept for me, especially because if I had to talk to my folks back in India,
Mhm.
my time would have changed. It messed up the whole order of, like when I call them and all of that. Not
Mhm.
just that, you just move time back and forth. How does one do that? I thought time was constant.
Yeah, we all just decided collectively, like, yeah, and now the time moves. What?
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, you lost an hour today. And then the next time, oh, you gain an hour. Like, yeah, you get an extra hour today. Like, what? This makes no sense.
I don't know. No, I guess the leap year is supposed to make up for days being shorter than they are. I heard once that the reason we have the time change is because, oh, I guess this was an American thing. There was a mayor in New York. who really liked golfing, and he didn't like that his golf days were getting shorter. Um, so like he was like part of the reason. I don't know, maybe it wasn't New York, I don't know. But it was like someone who like had some sort of strong political power, really liked golfing and wanted to golf more. And so like
Wow.
that was part of the reason for the time change. And I'm just like,
Move
that
time.
seems so like that can't possibly be it. You know, like there has to be more to it than that. That like so much of us just agreed to this thing. I mean, I can't really say I agreed to it, but like all the time change, like the time is all going to change around me. So there's not like a way that I could stop that. You know, if I
Hmm.
just kept living my life on the same clock and ignored this time change, like I would be an hour late to things. I would just be an entire hour late to things. Or early, I guess, depending on which one I decided was the appropriate time change for me.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that they did that to help farmers apparently because they would need sunlight to farm in the morning or something like that, and that's why they.
Oh, I mean that I like that a lot better than just this guy who really likes golf.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, the reason we have one province that does not participate in the time change is because of the farming industry, is because cows produce the optimal amount of milk, or like the most amount of milk, if they're milked regularly every single day. Like if like every day at 2 o'clock that is milking time. So then
Hmm.
if all of these farmers abided by time change, then their cows would all get milked an hour off, and then they would all have to get like reset onto that schedule, and then the time change would happen again, and they'd have to get reset. So like, there's an entire province, to my knowledge. I didn't Google any of this. I'm a piece of trash, garbage, whatever. Someone else can Google this and tell me that I'm a wrong, dumb idiot. But my understanding is we have an entire province that does not change their clocks for time change, so that the cows can get milked more better. What a sentence.
So that province are rebels. They're just punk ass hoes who are like, no, we'll stick to our time, whatever it needs to be. We're not turning the clocks left and right as we please.
Yeah.
Because a cow needs to milk at the same time.
I
Oh, that was
guess. I don't
hilarious.
know. But that could also bring us to our next topic, cows in the streets. We've mentioned it a little bit. You said that sometimes the cows eat the razor blades, but I'm more curious not just about cows in the streets, but what is animal life like in general there? You've got small squirrels, you've
Hmm.
got cows, you've got chickens. Do people have pet chickens, or
So,
are the chickens just out and about?
they're just out and about on the streets, but it goes
Like,
back to the owner. But they
oh,
usually rent
will it
it.
like will people like eat those chicken eggs or
Yes.
those chickens in
Yeah.
general?
Yeah, yeah. It's to be
Oh,
eaten. Yes.
okay.
What
But
else
they're
do
just
we
walking
have?
around eating your garbage, and then you're gonna eat that. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem,
Well,
that's
you're not
not really
eating the
my
gut,
ideal
are you?
lifestyle. I guess not, but like they're still
But still,
absorbing
yes.
that,
Yes. Well,
through the
that's
chain.
where the ignorance and lack of education plays in here.
Mm,
Hmm.
fair.
Yeah. See, I don't know how the cows ended up on the streets, but I heard from somebody that these dairies that had cows who they just let them go out on the streets once they stop milking, once they stop producing milk anymore. But on my street, there's a milkman who rears his cows on the street and on the sidewalks, and he milks them right on the sidewalk.
Like he'll just walk up to them and be like, "Hey, Carl, time for your milking."
Yeah, it's his cows rearing on the streets. But that is
Wait, okay.
exclusive only to my street, so don't take this as a universal thing.
Does he like milk them by hand?
Yes.
I guess he must. I've never seen a cow get milked by hand. Except like in the movies. Never in person though. Where would I see that? Actually, my mom's cousin has a dairy farm, but I
Uh-huh.
never watched them milk their cows. And I think that, okay, Oh, now we're going into like the farming industry. Um, okay, well, a couple things. Wow, I'm so scattered. One, you said you have a milkman.
Mhm.
Are you just referring to that same guy milking his cows? Like,
Yes.
does he bring you your milk? Do you just get his like raw milk from his cow and he'll just
If
bring it to your house?
if I wanted, yes, I could ask him to. Yes.
Wow, I did not expect you to say yes to that. Oh my gosh. I was like, no, Stephanie, you're just asking this totally dumb question. Oh my gosh,
But
okay.
this is India. All the answers to the dumb questions are yes. We do dumb shit always, all the time.
I don't know. I think it's also just like my perspective is like so small, Like I'm just like, this is how life is, and you're like, no, life isn't always like that, Stephanie.
You're so
Which is why I
naive in
love
your
these
clean and
conversations.
orderly Canada.
Yeah. Okay. So then, like dairy farms, do you think that dairy farmers there are milking their cows by hand?
No,
Because
no,
here
no,
they
of
just
course
hook
not.
that baby up to some sort of weirdo milking machine and it milks it and makes some milk. I don't really know too much about it, but I know there's a thing, a
Like the
machine of
pumping
some
kind of
type.
machine, yes. I mean, yes,
Yeah, like what the ladies use when they're on maternity leave, they like pump themselves, except for cows. Oh, which came first? Probably the cow one.
I mean, in the bigger dairy farms, yes, it's all automated. They use machines and whatnot. But we have a lot of individual milkmen, if I can say that. Um, there's this native breed of cows. So some people have them, and they sell the milk from those cows. It's called desi cows, and they market
What?
it as that exclusively as that.
That's his own kind of cow, a tasty cow.
No, no, desi cow,
Daisy cow.
desi cow.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, maybe their milk actually tastes good. I don't like cow milk. So I was like, oh, maybe it tastes better. Idiot. Okay. Do those cows look different?
Yeah, they're brown all over.
Whoa, my stomach just grumbled so loud. Holy shit. I don't know if you heard that or
I
not.
think you want some of that tasty milk. That's why.
Ew, fuck, milk's so gross. Oat milk all the way, thank you very much. Uh, okay, so they're
Mm.
brown all over. We have some brown cows here, but I guess maybe those are just brown cows, because they're probably not your same kind of cow.
No, they're much smaller.
Mm.
So the black and white ones, we have the black and white ones, but
Mhm.
apparently a really long time ago they were brought in from your land somewhere,
Okay,
not from here.
yeah. It was
Hmm.
probably like North America trying to give a gift. Like that's sort of like what countries do. Like we've been gifted tulips from the Netherlands. It's like here's a thing we grow, which like is
Hmm.
nice. I like tulips. They're pretty.
Hmm.
I guess I'd be happy to get some cows. They're cute. In Scotland they have hairy coo is what they call it, and it's a hairy cow, and it's really fluffy, and they're very cute.
Oh,
Yeah,
I remember
I'd
seeing
recommend
these
googling that as well.
fluffy cows in a zoo in Toronto.
This conversation really kind of went everywhere,
Yeah,
hey?
I mean we're at 44 minutes. Maybe we can end.
Oh yeah, I guess we could call it. That was sped right by. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Zip zip. Time flies when you're having a conversation. Having a good chat with a friend.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next week.
Please show us some love on Instagram at TrashBagsPod. And remember,
We might all be trash, folks, but don't be a trash bag. Be a reusable one.
also, thanks to our sound editor, Micah, this would all be so much worse without you. Bye now.
Bye.